Thank you for joining us for the Creating Positive Impact Through PPE Production Efforts at Nebraska Innovation Campus panel presentation. My name is Kate Engel, Director of Strategic Partnerships and Communication at Nebraska Innovation Campus, and I'll serve as the moderator for today's panel. I'm thrilled David Martin, Hunter Floodman, and Terry Howell are able to join us today to share with you their stories of creating positive impact through PPE production. David, Hunter, Terry, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, good to be here.
So for our first question, prior to mid-March of 2020, none of you were focused on PPE efforts. Would you please introduce yourself, share a bit about what your organization or department was focused on pre-COVID, and talk a bit about how you quickly shifted gears when COVID hit?
Hi, my name is David Martin. I am the director at Nebraska Innovation Studio. Nebraska Innovation Studio is a 16,000 square foot makerspace at Innovation Campus. We are member-based, so members can join and they can use all the tools we have, and we have quite a few. So we have a full wood shop, metal shop, screen printing, vinyl cutter, 3D printers, laser cutters. We have a lot of textile tools. So we really have a lot for all our members, and our members range from craft entrepreneurs to companies prototyping designs. We have people there just for fun, and we're open to anybody. So we have students, faculty members, community members. We have a veterans program. And before COVID hit, we were supporting our members. So we give trainings. Training is free as part of the membership, and we try to help people make what they want to make. Almost immediately after we shut down because of COVID, we started hearing from Nebraska hospitals that were really desperate for PPE. And, being a makerspace, we thought that was something we might be able to do to help. And initially we started with a mask, and we tried to make an N95 mask in the 3D printer. And took a lot of time to print, and then you had to heat form it. And then at the end of the day, we couldn't be sure that it would actually achieve an N95 rating. We certainly did not want to create masks that were not sufficient. So then we quickly switched over to face shields when we realized there was a demand for that. We got engineering help from a robotic surgery company at Innovation Campus called Virtual Incision. And we got help from the College of Engineering. They started working on getting our design into an injection molder. And, we really started reaching out to the community. And our first, initially we started 3D printing these just because we knew it was going to take a little while to get the injection molding ready. So it was sort of like a Dunkirk approach to PPE. We had local companies making these face shields. We had local hobbyists and makers making these, and we had libraries around the state were sending us 3D printed face shield parts. And then finally we had to get people to assemble them. And that also was sort of a cast of thousands. We had, volunteers come from all over to assemble it at Innovation Studio. And of course we had to maintain social distancing and that kind of thing. But so, after a week or so, we started injection molding these face shields, and then that really picked up the pace. So in about 4 months, we were able to shift from not having anything to do with PPE to producing about, I think we produced a little more than 33,000 face shields. So we really felt like we had a pretty good impact on hospitals around the state. Dentists picked up a lot of face shields, and a lot of them told us they could not have opened without our face shields. So it was really quite a transition for us.
I'll go next. My name is Hunter Floodman, and I'm an assistant professor of practice in the Department of Chemical Engineering at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And prior to our PPE efforts that started, I was teaching 13 credit hours of senior level chemical engineering courses, which is pretty much all I do in my job. And of course, with the onset of the pandemic in the United States, we ended up canceling courses the week before spring break to help us transition from in-person instruction to remote instruction. And over that week, I was able to change all my courses and get everything adjusted. to prepare for remote instruction. And then the week during spring break, which we didn't have classes, is when I received a phone call one day. I was conferenced in on a call with BASF and the Nebraska Ethanol Board, and BASF had wanted to send ingredients to make hand sanitizer to Nebraska because they knew Nebraska had a lot of resources, and we had have a lot of production of the active ingredient in hand sanitizer, which is ethanol. And from that point on, I spent that week kind of learning about hand sanitizer and the logistics of what it would take to produce it. And we found out that nobody in Nebraska was producing large quantities of hand sanitizer that were desperately needed at that time because of a shortage of supply due to the pandemic. And at some point in time, I think Jan Tenbensel, who's the chairman of the Nebraska Ethanol Board, and I decided that since nobody was doing it, somebody needed to step up. And the University of Nebraska, of course, has many resources, and that's when I got in touch with Terry, and things just kind of continued to happen from there.
And I'll add some more comments to that. So I'm Terry Howell. I'm the executive director of the Food Processing Center, which is housed on the Nebraska Innovation Campus. We are a part of the Food Science and Technology Department, and so we're the only academic unit today that is housed on the Innovation Campus. So we're kind of privileged to be there, and it helps to connect our center with our users of the center. So our food processing center primarily acts as a consultancy and a service group to the food industry. So food companies as large as multinational size companies all the way down to startup entrepreneurs can use our people and our facilities to advance their products, or learn, or potentially even use us to enhance their products and get them ready for the market. So we have a full service set of services that we offer the food industry, from product development work to microbiology work, chemical analysis. We have an 18,000 square foot pilot plant that allows companies to use our equipment in a scale that would simulate processing in their facility, or it allows also testing of new materials or new processing styles, or really evaluating new technology at times. So we have a staff of about 10 full-time employees, and then we also have a set of faculty members that assist us as well. So, and then student workers who work with us. So prior to the pandemic, we were providing services to our client companies as we normally would, and we were having a banner year. The food industry had a lot of work going on. We had some pieces of equipment that were really highly valued and were being used almost every week by different food companies. And so we were quite busy with that kind of work. When the pandemic hit, a lot of that changed. A lot of those companies were no longer able to travel. We were obviously concerned about not only our employee health and safety, but that of our clients. And so we were kind of limping along a little bit, trying to understand how to keep our business moving without completely shutting down. And so, as Hunter mentioned, as they were looking for a place to produce the hand sanitizer, he and I were connected in late March. I to be honest, we had never spoken, never met until that time. And we spent most of the next week back and forth on phone calls, emails, and just trying to sort out how we could participate in this hand sanitizer project. And so what you see there in the image that Kate has shared is a a tent and a fenced-in area that became a production facility just outside of our main food processing center. And so it was quite a change, and but yet it was a great partnership that was generated on the Innovation Campus at the University of Nebraska.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So as we have chatted and we continue to reflect on the PPE production efforts that took place at Innovation Campus, you've all commented that none of these efforts would have been possible without this idea of kind of a yes culture. Would you please share your thoughts on how the culture at Innovation Campus, the university, our community, and the state of Nebraska impacted the PPE efforts?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question, Kate. I know the first time I talked to Terry, the first time I talked to the executive director of Innovation Campus, Dan Duncan, you know, we had this idea, and it came about in a very, very short period of time between when the idea happened and when we actually built this facility and went into production. And so it was just amazing to see the culture of Innovation Campus and really the trust, I guess, that they put in us to do a good job and to do it safely. And without the support of the university, absolutely, this would never happen. I remember when we designed that production facility that you saw in the previous picture, I think I sent an email out at 11 p.m. the night before, and I showed up at 6 a.m. in the parking lot the next morning. And I already had the University EHS team meet me there at 6 a.m. I was on the phone with the Board of Regents. College of Engineering between 6 and 7 a.m. Gave us $10,000 to help us start building that facility. Office of Research and Economic Development gave us another $10,000 to help us build that facility. University Operations not only donated a lot of their staff to help us finish the design and build, but they paid for a $10,000 custom-made fence that went up in less than one day, so that we could get this effort started. So, and of course, Terry, probably not knowing fully what he was committing to at the time, committed his full staff just to this operation of making hand sanitizer. And so, also, I remember I called Dan and said, Dan, is it okay if we build a production facility in his parking lot? And I think that's the first time he'd ever heard about it. And I told him we were going to drill holes through the concrete of the parking lot and take up a large portion of the parking lot. And almost without hesitation, he's like, yes, do it, do what you need to do. And so it was just incredible to see how fast it came together and the amount of support we received from really across the entire university and Innovation Campus as well.
And I'll add a few comments to what Hunter said, and just hearing him say those things just brings back a lot of just great memories. You know, these are, you know, those 4 months were, those are the kinds of things that I'll never forget in my career. It was just you know, very memorable times. And as he mentioned, the first time I ever actually met Hunter, that fence was already up in that parking lot. You know, as he mentioned, I showed up to visit with EHS and the fire marshal to get approvals, and I was just, when I drove up, I was just shocked to see the tent, the fence, and all the work that had been going on while I was working at home that day trying to get approval by the FDA for us to become a registered facility. So the thing that really stands out to me on how the culture of the campus impacted this kind of project is it really gets back to the whole name of the campus, the Nebraska Innovation Campus. For us, the Food Innovation Center. You know, those things, you know, begin to become a cultural thing. And I'm new to Nebraska. I've only lived, you know, at the time hadn't even lived here 2 years. And so for me to be absorbed into that culture and to be thinking about, you know, as a way to assist, you know, I think about ways to assist startup food companies all the time. And what I found myself is our group and this little ragtag team became a startup hand sanitizer company. And so to think like an entrepreneur and to have the resources that we had on the campus that were already promoting those kinds of activities, it made it really, really easy for us to make decisions and to know that we had support from administrators, and then people on the campus itself was always so encouraging and gave us a lot of confidence that we were doing things that the others supported. I think along the way, meeting people like Hunter and Jan Ten Bensel, who was mentioned previously and who you may have seen in some of the other photos, and some of the employees that worked on the campus. For me, these are lifelong Nebraskans, people that have grown up in this state, and really embody this kind of a pioneer spirit, a can-do. There's just something about these native Nebraskans that just want to help people and don't mind doing the hard work. And so for me, I kind of said, even personally, I've got to switch gears myself to be able to keep up. And so it was a really great experience for me just to be affiliated with it. So.
Now I'll add something to what Terry was saying. Talking about Nebraska, I'm also not a native Nebraskan, but I think one of the reasons there is such a yes culture here is because no one is more than 2 degrees of separation from anyone else in the state. So it's very easy to reach people and seek out help because obviously we're not a production facility normally, so we definitely needed to reach out and get assistance from all sorts of people, not only within the university but in Lincoln and around the state. So when we needed 3D printed parts for our face shields, the makers, manufacturers, and others in Lincoln across the state, they said yes, and they started printing them. We needed an injection molding machine, and engineering professor Ben Terry, who had an injection molding machine that was actually purchased by the Defense Department for a grant, jumped through a bunch of hoops to get permission to use that injection molding machine 24, literally around the clock, to print out face shields so we could get them out there. And of course, our members, our veterans, people in the community also said yes, and they were willing to come in and volunteer their time to assemble face shields. We even had an orthopedic surgeon whose elective surgeries had been canceled, and he came in and helped make face shields, which I kind of like that. We had a local company who was originally printing out the clear front face shields that with any sort of plastic we could get our hands on. And then, a local packing company let us know they had some medical grade PET plastic, and they started punching out the face shield fronts pretty much at cost. So we really benefited from Nebraska's yes culture, and would not have been possible without it.
Awesome, thank you. And you may have touched a little bit on this next question, but many of the great stories that we've been able to share about the PPE efforts included a long list of partners. Could you expand a little bit about how did your network assist you in creating an impact that benefited Nebraska and beyond?
Okay, I'll go first on that, Kate. Thanks for the question. As I mentioned, I had not lived in Nebraska very long, and so even though I had one of my job duties is to try to build the networks around the state and around the region that can support the food industry. It sometimes still takes time to do that. So my network, even though, like I said, I'm constantly trying to build it, it really starts with in this case, Dan Duncan and Kate Engel at the Innovation Campus. So these are 2 people that very well connected and have been associated with the campus for a long time. And so once Dan was aware of what we were up to, he would often call me or drop by and make suggestions about how we can who else we might need to inform about what we're doing, or who else may be interested in participating or contributing. And so Dan may have been the one who suggested that we utilize the Nebraska Forest Service, for instance, to utilize a tanker truck from that fleet. Someone that, so a group that we might not have gotten in contact with or been aware of without him. Otherwise, I also leveraged the broader network within the Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources on the University of Nebraska campus. And so that's a broad group of administrators and faculty members that serve across the state through extension and through research and teaching. And then they also support the Food Processing Center. And so as people from that network of individuals became aware, they certainly helped. The Food Processing Center Advisory Board also became a key piece of our network. So there are about a dozen food industry people that provide guidance to our center, and as just kind of a courtesy to let them know how we were handling the pandemic, I shared an update with the advisory board in probably late March, early April, when this was all beginning. And many of the advisory board members immediately asked, how can I help? How can our company support you? What kinds of things can we do? And little things like, a company in Omaha delivering a truckload of pallets to support us, and those kinds of things, were really valuable to us because, and many times, during the production of the hand sanitizer, those kinds of elements showed up just in time, right when we needed it, almost every time without us having to spend any money, people donating those things. So it was really clear, how that network could support, this project. And maybe the last thing I'll share, and it was really relates to a kind of a crowdfunding model that we use to add some needed finances to support some of the system. I can't recall exactly how the crowdfunding got started, but I know that as soon as it did, again, the advisory board immediately jumped in to share it with their network, and many of those companies donated to our cause along the way. So like I said, even though my network wasn't as developed as I would have liked it to have been, as soon as we got the word out, people came out of the woodworks to help us.
And we had a very similar experience at Innovation Studio. I mean, when we initially got the idea and the desire to start in the PPE business, we started with our network right among our members. We've had more than 2,000 people become members in the 5 years we've been open, and we started there and many of them jumped in to help us out and to spread the word with their contacts. At Innovation Campus, we also got help from Virtual Incision, as I mentioned, the robotic surgery company. They helped us with engineering and with some other things. And then, kind of concentric circles of our network going outward. The College of Engineering helped us out, and with the injection molder. Local businesses helped. There's a local Kawasaki plant. They helped us with 3D printed parts and with getting the word out. We're connected to libraries around the state. There's a grant that sends mobile maker spaces to libraries around the state. And so we have a network with dozens of libraries around Nebraska, and they helped us out. And sometimes, most of our efforts were to help out hospitals and healthcare providers within Nebraska, but we actually had the network work the other way around. We had someone at the University of Nebraska Medical Center reached out to us, and he had a connection in the Bronx, and they were desperately needing face shields. So we had a local businessman gave us $10,000, and we were able to ship out 1,200 face shields that were delivered the next day to the Montefiore Medical Center, and that made a huge difference. So it was really, as Terry was saying, it was a really meaningful project to work on.
Yeah, I'll kind of I guess, share my experience along with Terry's experience with the hand sanitizer production. I mentioned that we had a huge amount of support from the university and from Nebraska Innovation Campus, and that really allowed us to get started. And also the crowdfunding that Terry mentioned really helped us tremendously. But we couldn't have done anything without donations from private industry. And I think there was a stat, I think somewhere on these slides, where 98% of the ingredients that we use to produce hand sanitizer came from donations from private industry. And our business model was we were giving away the product for free. And so that's not a sustainable business model when you have to purchase some rather expensive ingredients to make the product that you're producing. And so I really have to thank all the companies that supported us. And I think I've been a member of the Nebraska Ethanol Board, which is kind of a unique state agency, but it's really the only state agency in the United States that supports the production and the sale and the use of ethanol and other biofuels. And through that organization, I was able to build some pretty good relationships with people around the state and with ethanol plants around the state. And I think along with Jan Tenbensel, who's the chairperson of the Nebraska Ethanol Board, and I were able to really get some great support. And it was really great to see these companies who were struggling themselves financially and really in economic crisis were willing to donate what they produce during a really difficult time in order to help the community and help the people in the community. And just to be able to see that, it was really great to be a part of that in some way. And the companies that I should mention, I know there's going to be a lot, but if I have time, I'm going to say Green Plains, they donated the vast majority of the ethanol, which is the active ingredient. So they committed to donate 160,000 gallons of ethanol to our operation, which allowed us to produce the 200,000 gallons of hand sanitizer. Cargill donated a lot of ingredients and containers as well. Syngenta donated ingredients and containers, BASF as well, both containers and ingredients. Phillips 66 donated over 100,000 one-gallon containers to us in order to bottle and label and distribute the hand sanitizer to people who needed it. Nutrien donated containers, the state of Nebraska. We were using all kinds of resources from the National Guard to the Department of Roads to help us with transportation. Kappa Ethanol also helped us out. Sapp Brothers Petroleum did a lot of transportation for us. So there's just all kinds of companies that stepped up and really made this possible. And as well as what Terry mentioned, we were actually had to stop production at one point in time because the way that we were receiving the ethanol, it was no longer possible for us to receive it. And so we were desperately trying to find a semi-truck and a tanker trailer in order to transport ingredients. And we were trying to work with the National Guard and with the state, and we were having trouble. And that's where Dan really stepped in, and he put us in contact with the Nebraska Forest Service, and that allowed us really to do what we did too. And so I think what Terry said is, we ran into a lot of troubles where we were short of one thing or short of another, or didn't have the right equipment or tools. And it was amazing how fast we were able to use our network and solve those problems.
That's awesome. Well, no doubt the impact of your efforts was felt by many in this state and also beyond. So thank you for all of that. Hunter, you mentioned that hand sanitizer production has wrapped up. So Hunter and Terry, would you want to share with the group quickly about how the hand sanitizer production moved from your departments to the private sector, and what has the impact of that transition been?
If it's all right, I'll start on that one, Terry, and I'll let you finish. I think early on we realized that we were trying to fill a gap in the supply chain because hand sanitizer just wasn't available for purchase when the pandemic started. And so we knew that we didn't have a sustainable business model relying on donations and volunteer workers and giving the product away for free. And so I think early on we made an open invitation to any business or anyone interested in producing hand sanitizer. We let them come and tour our operation and ask us questions. And we offered, basically told our story to anyone who wanted to hear it. And I can think of at least 5 companies that came and got pretty in-depth tours of our operation. And we broke down what we did and explained what we did and explained some of the hazards. And I know out of those 5 that I remember came, I know 4 of them went into hand sanitizer production in some capacity later on. And so I hope they were able to learn from our mistakes and learn from our operation and take that and become a successful hand sanitizer producing company. But I'll let Terry kind of expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. And then there's not a whole lot more that I can add. I mean, I think Hunter really described some of the mentality that we had, from the beginning and really continue to have. So, for us, just as Hunter mentioned, we saw this as a temporary process to really meet these essential needs that were happening as the pandemic began, and I'd be embarrassed to tell you how little, I guess what my expectations were of this plant when we first started. When Hunter called me on March 29th, I was thinking we might make a couple of 100 gallons. I wasn't thinking a couple of 100,000 gallons at all. It just wasn't on my radar screen. But once we saw the need and really as Hunter cast a vision for this, we were certainly committed to being as helpful as we could be in the process. And I don't think we could have asked for much better as far as, just as Hunter mentioned, support from the ethanol industry and those associated with it and around the state to help us. But we have no long-term plans to be in the hand sanitizer business. That's not what our mission is. And so one of the things that we really were desiring for this was to find ways to support the state and industries in the state. So as Hunter mentioned, we gave tours to anyone who would request it. We would discuss the details of how much we were spending in personnel, equipment, even what we estimated the cost of ingredients to be, so that someone could get a very good picture of the financial implications of taking this on themselves. We even discussed, as best we could tell, the volumes that were estimated for per person use in different situations. So how much was the University of Nebraska anticipating for its students and faculty and staff members to be using over the course of an academic year? How much hand sanitizer would a typical food processing plant worker consume on a monthly basis? Those kinds of things. And so we tried to be as helpful as we could. I mean, with a long-term goal of supporting industry in the state. I mean, one of the major outcomes and goals of the Innovation Campus as a whole is to build the infrastructure, particularly businesses and companies in the state of Nebraska. And so we tried with every chance we could to share that with potential hand sanitizer operations in the state. So
Great, thank you both. And as a final question for each of you, the PPE production efforts took up obviously a great deal of your time and energy this spring and summer, and now they're winding down or have possibly completed as we get into fall. So what's next for each of you, and how has this experience changed you or impacted your organization or department?
I'll go first. We're back open again as a makerspace. We have obviously a lot of new rules and restrictions as far as because of COVID. I have a newfound respect for people who are in the supply chain management business because as Terry and Hunter were saying, I mean, we're constantly scrambling to get one thing or another. So we're trying to get back to some sort of new normal, but our production days may be behind us, but I guess we're ready if something else comes up.
For me, hand sanitizer production ceased, I think, a week before fall classes started. And at the University of Nebraska, we're back to in-person classes. So I'm back to teaching my normal course load, doing my normal job. But I think, the one thing that's going to really stick with me and change, and Terry kind of alluded to this too, is really like the lifelong relationships I think that I built just by being part of the project and working with the food processing center staff, Russell Party, Sarah Hertzinger, Tom Dobish. I think, those are friendships that I'm going to have for the rest of my life. And it was something special to be a part of, and something that I think we all learned a lot, and it was just a great experience.
Yeah, and I would, just kind of echo both, what David and Hunter said. It's, there were many times that we would, sit around at the end of a long day and just reflect on what we were working on and how we appreciated, being a part of it. And then a lot of times those conversations would turn to, what kind of long-term impact might this have for us? And so for me, having not ever been a part of a startup myself, but trying to coach a lot of food entrepreneurs in that area, it was a perfect experience for me to have sometimes this sense of being overwhelmed with things to do and who's going to do it. Being overwhelmed at times with who do I contact for this piece of paperwork, and what kind of detail is needed to do this or that. How many people does it take to operate a small facility like this? And so there was a lot of really good learning for me in that. One of the things that I really loved was, we never really assigned jobs to anyone on the team, but all of a sudden everyone had a job. Everyone did something, kind of in that role every day, and then kind of became proficient at it. And so for me, I think I take away an appreciation for what these entrepreneurial food company startups bring to us, and I think hopefully a lot better understanding of how to support them in that process. So again, I would have never dreamed that we would have had the opportunity to do that, but it really, I think, is going to benefit us long term, as well as just the value we added during those few months.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. David, Hunter, Terry, thank you for being part of this panel. I know that we look forward to answering questions that the audience or the viewers might have, and we'd be happy to do that. And if people are interested in additional stories about the PPE efforts, they can visit handsanitizer.unl.edu for stories. And we also have stories posted on innovate.unl.edu. So thank you so much. Take care and stay well.